everybody, welcome back to my channel. We are going to be painting this really cool deer silhouette in the forest. I thought with fall coming up, this might be a great little painting to do to get into the spirit of it. So we are starting with a wet on wet technique. I'm taking my big brush and I am just wetting this center section, and then I'm adding a little bit of beige to it, just a tiny bit, just to kind of tint this area. As you can see, I already have the silhouettes of the deer there. You can do that now or you can do it later. It's completely up to you. I like to do it ahead of time. It just kind of gives me a point of reference to use. And I'm going to attach a link to this image in the description. So you'll be able to just take this and print it off, or if you go to something like Pixabay, which has free photo usage, you can also print off a silhouette there of different deers or whatever it is that you want to use. It doesn't even have to be deer. You could do birds. Um, it could be, I'm trying to think of what else you'd want to see in the forest. If you want to do bears, whatever it is, you can just print off whatever silhouette you want, or you could just leave it blank. But I do like having some sort of silhouette of an animal there. You can have like, if you want to do like a Father's Day or a birthday gift, you could put a silhouette of like a dad and his child, or you could put, maybe something like you and your dog, whatever it is. You can put whatever silhouette you want there. Um, Now that I did this little center area, as you can see, I left that very center area blank. I'm using the white of the paper, and that white of the paper is going to give it that kind of glow coming from beyond the forest. It's like almost like sunlight coming through. I kind of imagine it's a foggy morning, the sun's coming through, breaking through a little bit. And then I'm taping up the sides of it. I'm doing that because I just want to give it that nice clean edge. So whenever I have like a what I call a messier painting, I like to do these clean edges because when you remove the tape, as you'll see in the end, it just gives us really cool pop, and it just finishes off really nicely. The reason why I also did it at this point is because I just wanted that center part to dry a little bit and give me something to do. So I'm going to go ahead and add the beige here again, and this is from, of course, Dr. P.H. Martin, pretty much all I use. And I went a little bit darker here. So you're going to have these lines, and it's not a perfect blend, which I am absolutely okay with because we're going to be putting these trees on top. So I don't care that they are not perfectly blended. And in fact, it just kind of gave me a little bit of a guide to where to put my trees. I added gamboge. Gamboge is like a yellowish color tint, um, and it gives it that, again, yellowish, glowish color I'm going for, mixing with the beige. You could definitely see some of my streaks in there, and it's, the streaks are almost creating its own forest effect, which is working in this instance. So, and I'm also doing this in a little bit of an arching pattern because you can see how I go up above a bit, and the trick to this is to have a really, really wet paper. If your paper's not wet enough, you're going to end up having the paint really not blend at all, or you're going to end up with like really concentrated levels of paint. So the wetter your paper, the better, um, which is, anytime you do a scene like this, I think is going to be the case. So now I'm just doing these little streaks across to create that water effect. You have to decide where your horizon line is going to be. If you want to draw one in before you start, just to give yourself a guide, you can. Um, like I said, I'm using my silhouettes as kind of that point of reference. I'm going to leave white in the middle from the paper because I want to create that glow effect, and nothing does it better than the white of the paper. Um, and I'm just taking the wet of the paint and just gliding it across to give it that streaks, so you can tell it's water. And now I'm doing sepia, which is going to be the brown that I'm using for the forest. You can use whatever browns you want. You can even do these in shades of blues, shades of greens. Um, which I think would look pretty cool, especially if you do greens, then it would give it that kind of springtime look. Um, you could do blues, it'll give you that kind of misty morning winter look, so maybe do a series of them, have 3 of them, and then you can frame them and represent each season. I think that's actually a really cool idea. Uh, Maybe if you do a spring one, you can have like the mama and her baby. I think these are all really fun ideas. If you do, then of course share the pictures with me because I would love to see it. I think that would be really fun to see a series like this. Um, okay, so I'm finishing up the sepia on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and add that just to the edge. As you can see, I'm kind of building out. So I have the blank of the blank of the paper has the white in the middle, and then I have the beige and the gamboge kind of towards the off to the sides there, and then I'm doing the sepia on the very edges. So it's almost like if you're, when you, I forgot the term, but if you are doing oh my gosh, I have to remember what the name of this is. If you're doing, when you're editing a photo and you are looking to darken the edges, it's called vignette. Thank you, vignette. So kind of giving a vignette look to this. But it's really just because you're trying to make that look like there's sun breaking through. And I'm doing the sepia at this point. And you're going to just let this dry. So that is your first layer. You want it to 100% dry. So this is your, go get some coffee break, get a glass of wine. Because if you don't let it dry completely, then your forest now will just bleed, which is fine if that's the effect you're going for, but we're not looking for that here. And then I'm drawing a line um, with a watered down brown tone. So whichever one you want to go with. And I freehand drew this. The reason why I did it freehand is because I don't want a perfect line. I want it to have some variance because trees are not perfectly straight up and down. They're not perfect lines. They are, they have like a, you know, like they're just not perfect. So I'm starting in the middle. I'm doing this really light color brown, and I'm just drawing these really thin trees to start off with. As you can see, I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. And if you feel more comfortable just penciling it in first, by all means do that. Um, Especially if you've not drawn trees before, a lot of times just penciling it in first gives you that confidence. Because if you freehand it, I see people tend to overthink it, and that's when they mess up their tree. So, if anything, it's just to just mentally give you a place to put the trees. And then I'm putting some branches. So I just want to kind of cascade over each other. So I'm just doing some light branches. And I just think it's kind of this cool effect. So we're going to do something different today with the leaves. So I'll show you guys here in a minute what we're doing with the leaves, but I know that leaves is something that people struggle with quite a bit. So this is a good opportunity to learn a really easy trick. Um, and it's, if you see the list of things that you need, you're going to see that one of the things you need is a cotton ball. So you probably guessed how you're going to do your leaves, but um, when I first approached this, I was trying to figure out an easy way to do this, and I'm sure I'm not the one who created this idea, but I was like, oh, let me try a cotton ball. I was thinking sponges, I was thinking all these different things, and then I just was looking online, like, okay, let me order some sponges, and I was looking like for special speckle sponges, and I just grabbed a cotton ball because I was getting impatient and said, let me just try this cotton ball, and it ended up being exactly what I needed. So I love when I can just use something in the house that is exactly what I can use and don't have to spend money on extra tools, especially nowadays with everything being so expensive. So we are continuing on with our trees. I'm doing some darker. You can see this is maybe 2 or 3 shades darker than the one to the right of it. Um, you could even do, to create a cool effect, you could even do like a darker shade, that gamboge. It doesn't all have to be in brown. In fact, I would suggest doing different, like the gamboge, the beige, the sepia in different shades just to create that really cool effect. So just go ahead and finish up with these trees. I sped this up because obviously once you figure it out, you're just kind of repeating the process. So a little bit darker here, some thinner ones, some branches. Um, so I'm just going to fly through this. And sometimes I learn personally by watching like a time lapse because seeing it come together like this without going through it slowly, for some reason that visual helps me a little bit. And as you can see, I added a couple more of the gamboge ones there in the middle that I was talking about, like a yellow, darker yellow one. And then here I'm doing just straight sepia. So now I'm going into my almost darkest tones. And then I'm also going to use pure black at some point. So now I'm just really kind of bringing in the edge of the forest. And yeah, you're going to go over a couple of your trees too. Totally fine because trees aren't perfectly spaced out when you see them. And this gives you that kind of multi-dimensional effect. And I think I'm going to do, am I doing my black? Yes, I think I'm doing my dark. Yep, going straight black to the paper now. I had to see myself dip the paint in the palette. So yeah, you're doing straight black. And then I try to keep the black minimal, just a couple of here and there, just because obviously you don't want to lose the rest of your forest. Just enough to kind of give that effect on the edge. And you can even do one right to the edge of the paper or like the tape, and it'll help give you that really solid edge too. So anyways, I want to ask you guys, do you like fall? Are you excited that fall is coming? I know there's a lot of mixed people out there with some people are like, no, I don't want fall to come yet. I want summer to continue, and some are just like ready to bring on fall. When I lived in Arizona, I could not wait for fall. I know by this time of the year I was just pretending it was fall, so I was decorating because I felt like at least on the inside of my house, if it looked like fall, then it wouldn't feel so hot because this time of year in Arizona, it's still blistering hot and you're still very much in the middle of summer. Um, but here in New England, you can feel summer coming to an end. Um, you just the flowers are just not blooming as much anymore. Some of your seasonal stuff is starting to die out. Like I know my sunflowers just they pretty much are done now, so you're just hearing less and less birds. So it definitely feels like the end of the summer here, and I'm okay with it. Summer is short here in New England, but I'm okay with it. It probably has something to do with spending most of my life in hot weather, but I am such a fall girl. I love celebrating fall. I love everything about it. I love the scents. I'm excited to go apple picking. I am excited to decorate for the fall. I'm excited about Halloween. So all of this just makes me super happy, and I was really excited to do a fall piece. Um, just to kind of get excited about it. And I'm kind of a, whatever goes. If you love summer, then drag summer on as much as you want. If you love fall, then celebrate it. I just want people to do whatever makes them happy. So I'm doing a solid black here, and this is where you could kind of see how much it contrasts. You can see how it pops from the rest of the painting. I'm also doing this a bit thicker than the rest of my trees because you want that effect of it being in the foreground. So as trees get further apart or further away, they look thinner, they look smaller. As they're closer, you're going to see much more of it. So that was why I did these a little bit thicker than the ones that are obviously in the background. And you could kind of tell from here that looks like, those are closer to you than the ones that are a little bit lighter color. Okay, so I am just finishing up these darker trees here. Just a couple more. And then I'm going to work on the sponging effect with the cotton ball. So I actually just take a little piece of the cotton um, and I just dipped it in the black paint. First I'm doing the sepia paint, the lighter color paint. And then I'm going to go darker too, because you want to create the same effect with the leaves that you do with the trees. You don't want them all to be dark. Um, you want some of them to be the beige, more like in the middle, and then some of them are going to be darker towards the other side. So I'm doing just a beige, just dipping straight paint. This does mess with your nails, so if you have a fresh manicure, you may want to put a glove on so you don't mess it up. But I obviously don't have my nails done, so I don't care. But I'm starting with the beige, and you can see that it's such a fast and easy way to do the leaves. Um, I was really pleasantly surprised with how well it came out. Don't put too much paint on your cotton ball, because if you do, you'll end up with blobs of paint instead of that kind of deckled leaf effect. Um, you can see a couple of spots where I went a little bit more blobby. I'm okay with that because, it just looks like a cluster of leaves. But to really give it that nice effect, you want it to just be kind of on the edges of the cotton ball instead of, saturated it. So I'm just going to do a couple. I'm going lower on the trees than you probably would have expected. Um, but I think that really helps to give it that effect. So now I'm using the black. And I don't know, this is my favorite part because I really feel like it's starting to come together. You're starting to see the effect. Um, Less is more. So, I would go less than you think you need. You can always add more later. You can't take it away. So definitely don't go overboard with this until you know you need more. So it's almost one of those things where do this, then do maybe another part of the painting, and then go back and say, do I really need some more, or am I good? A lot of times you might need to ask for somebody's opinion, because this effect is one of those that just you can get very carried away with, and um, you end up to the point of no return. When I teach my classes, I could tell usually when the students start to sit back and like, I don't know, I feel like it needs a little bit more, and then they start to add more, and then they add more, and then they add more, and all of a sudden they're like, I should have stopped 5 minutes ago. So if you're asking yourself, I don't know, maybe it needs more, stop. That's your point. You stop. That's one of the hardest things about painting, is knowing when you're supposed to stop. When you start to question if you should stop or not, you should. Just stop at that point. You can always go back and add more. But you just don't want to go to that point where you're like, I hate it now. I should have stopped 10 minutes ago. And it's a very common thing for, I think, all artists to go through. So um, I'm just kind of adding more to the bottom now, filling in where I feel like it's just obviously needs some more. And then you, like I said, you stop. Um, and now for the deer. So I'm just going in with solid black paint. I'm not watering it down. I want the deer just to really pop at this point. So I do not want to water down that black at all. I put in the grass later because, as you'll see, it's a lot easier to fill grass in around the deer than it is to try to figure out where the deer is going to fit into the grass. Um, you might have others say, no, put in the horizon line, put in the grass, and then add the deer. I like this order better personally. I think it leads to less error. So if you are thinking, you want to just make sure you want to play it safe, then do the deer first. Also, if you make a mistake with the deer, you can use that opportunity to fill in more grass. And see, this is one of the reasons why I liked drawing the deer in first, because you can see my deer is quite a bit above what it looks like is the forest ground. But in the end, you'll see it's not. It's just I want a little bit lower with the trees, because that's where you see the grass is going to start. But grass is not a thin line, so I wanted it to be a little bit more lush. And then I'm painting this other deer here, and um, you can use a black micron pen if you don't feel comfortable using a brush to fill this in, especially the details. But I would suggest definitely trying to do it with the paint, because if you use like a black micron pen with this, you will be able to see the difference in texture. I do use a black micron pen or a gel pen in a lot of my pieces, but usually when it's something where it's covering this much space, I don't recommend it, because there is a very distinct difference in the texture between a pen and a paint. So I would, maybe if you're doing the ears in a micron pen, I would maybe trim it not trim it, trace the edges with the micron pen and then fill in with the black paint. But I definitely would not fill in the whole thing with a micron pen. I can't see the legs anymore with the drawing here, so I am just painting it in and trying to figure it out. I think I could see a little bit of the edge here. I'm just like, oh, where did the legs go? So I'm eyeballing it here. So it's probably another reason. Wait, if you want to make sure that you can see it. I barely traced these deer silhouettes, so I think that was part of the problem. Is you could barely see the pencil marks to begin with. So, but either way, it worked out. So I'm just finishing up this little deer here, and you can see how much it pops from the rest of the picture because it's a solid black. And you could just see it just makes that white of the paper seem like it's glowing. It's such a cool effect because obviously you're just using the white of the paper, but it just gives it that glow, and I just think it's so cool. And now I'm going to do my horizon line. And then I'm going to add my blades of grass after that. This kind of forces you to make your ground area a little bit thicker too, which I've noticed that a lot of people tend to want to go a little bit thinner when you're painting over your painting. Drawing a black line straight across all this work you've just done can be a little alarming. So this kind of forces you to also give it enough of a ground and cover up that piece of it without freaking out too much. So that's what I'm doing. And now that I've added it, you can see that it's not really that much off the ground. So um, this kind of looks like a log to me at this point, which is really cool. But in the end, I make it into a blades of grass. So and then I'm also, creating like a little bit of a slope because you don't have even ground through the forest. And now I am going to add my blades of grass, and I'm going to do a close-up here so you can see the technique I'm using. It's quick successions. That's a trick. You don't want to try to draw really steady lines because then it'll end up not being nice and clean. So really quick, even in slow-mo, you can see it's pretty quick. Quick enough where some of them might not even hit the paper, but it does give it that blades of grass. Don't have them all go in the same direction, different directions, and you can see, voila. And I'm just going to do a little bit on the other side here, and then we are going to work a little bit on the reflections. You don't have to do blades of grass everywhere, a couple here and there, or you can do the whole thing. It's up to you. Whatever you prefer. This is where your creativity comes in. If you want to add more, you can even add like longer wisps if you want. You can add a bush, whatever you want to do. Sometimes this is a great way to cover up some of the errors on the background too. And, I mean, I wanted to make it look like she's lying in a bed of the grass, so I put quite a bit in there. And different directions, like I said, helps a lot. And I'm just kind of cleaning up this bottom line here, and I'm going to add the darker lines for the reflection from the trees, so the trees are reflecting into the water. And then what you want to do is add some light shadowing specific to some of the trees in the foreground because that would reflect into the water, which I'm going to do towards the end there. But you can see I'm getting towards the end, finishing this up. If you did this piece, of course, please let me know how you did. This is one of my favorite pieces, I think, that we've done so far. I think it's just one that it does give you quite a bit of room to make error and recover from it. It's a forgiving piece. And you're starting from light to dark with the forest, so it gives you room to, if you're not quite sure about the trees, you're starting with such a light colored tree, then, by the time you get to the darker ones, you've pretty much got the hang of it at that point. So I just think it really helps. I'm adding the little deer in here, reflection. Here's the legs. It's kind of weird painting upside down. And you want to do this in a very light black. You don't want it to be the same darkness because it is a reflection. And then I'm just going over it a bit just to, I think in the end I didn't even notice I had a deer there, deer reflection. And I'm going to put a couple of the tree reflections in there too, like right here. And I just feel like that was it. I'm like, wow, that one shadow really helped bring it all together to me, because that's when you're like, oh, you could tell that's really water. Um, and it's just a couple of streaks across the water there. You don't want it to be solid, just enough to give it that effect here and there. And that's pretty much all you need. So let me know what you thought about this painting. If you have any questions, of course, post it in the comments. If you have any recommendations on video, of course, let me know. I will try to make it happen. And if you are like me and you love fall and everything about fall, what is your favorite part about fall? For me, I would say I love the tones of the colors. I'm very into the terracottas and the browns and the oranges. I love these colors. So I love being able to just fill my home with these colors. But I also love the smells. I love the smell of apple and pumpkin and cinnamon. I love all of that. And I feel like that just gets it into such a festive mode. Um, so let me know what your favorite part of fall is. So this is the best part. You get to take the tape off, but be careful, because no matter how good your tape is, no matter how good your paper is, it can tear. I suggest going slowly and at an angle, just to make sure you don't tear any of your paper. And there, see what I meant? Oh, just a perfectly clean edge. It just finished it off. And of course, you don't want to forget the most important part, which is signing your painting. So there we have it. Let me know what you guys think. I can't wait to see how yours turned out. And of course, I will see you at the next painting.